Introduction. The Forbidden Herbal of Paracelsus, Basel, 1541. An apprentice enters the room of his master, who died only a few hours earlier. The scent of sulfur and dried herbs still hangs in the air. On the table, among glass vials and rolled parchments, he discovers a worn leather notebook. No title, only a phrase carved on its cover. Let he who reads this know how to disobey. Paracelsus died at dawn. Some say he was poisoned. Others believe he simply exhausted himself fighting a world that refused to listen. The apprentice opens the manuscript with trembling hands. The first page freezes him in place. Plants do not heal because they contain substances. They heal because they remember what the body has forgotten, that it is made of the same light as they are. The young physician quickly closes the book. This isn't set medicine, he thinks. It sets heresy. If he sets found with this, he sets burn alongside it. But something in those words beats like a heart. He opens it again. 12 plants, each with its planetary correspondence, its element, its purpose within the human soul. Paracelsus didn't set right recipes. He wrote keys to unlock what illness truly hides. The disconnection between the body and the energy that created it. The apprentice reads all night. At dawn, he understands why his master was hunted, not for blasphemy, but for revealing a dangerous truth, that the power to heal has never belonged to the church or to physicians. It has always lived in the earth, in the roots, in the leaves that glimmer beneath the sun, and in the human body itself, that body which has never stopped speaking the language of nature. This is that herbal, not a book of botany, but a map leading back to what your blood already knows, toward an obedience that is not submission, but resonance, because the body does not obey the will. It obeys the energy that sustains it, and that energy still lives within the sacred plants. Let us begin. The Forbidden Herbal of Paracelsus. Chapter 1. St. John Sefswort. The Solar Blood. It blooms where the sun hits hardest, on slopes, along roadsides, in places where the earth cracks open. Its petals shine like tiny flames, and when crushed, they release a red oil that looks like blood. For Paracelsus, this was instead a coincidence. He called it the plant of the inner sun, the blood of the light itself. Every being, he wrote, carries a piece of the sun within. When that light dims, sickness begins. St. John's wort, or Hypericum perforatum, was the first entry in his forbidden herbal. He prescribed it not only for wounds of the flesh, but for those invisible wounds that modern medicine still struggles to name. In his time, it was used for cuts, burns, infections, but Paracelsus said its true domain was the soul. He observed that those who lived far from the sunlight, who avoided warmth or joy, fell sick, not from lack of food, but from lack of light. The body does not grow ill alone, he wrote. It follows the spirit that has forgotten how to shine. St. John Sefswort is that reminder. It reawakens the solar current that runs through every cell. Modern science confirms this. Its active compounds, hypericin and hyperforin, regulate neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine, balancing mood and restoring the natural rhythm of daylight within the brain. But Paracelsus didn't speak of molecules. He spoke of resonance. He said that the plant's yellow color is not just pigment, but a signature of the sun, a memory encoded in matter. Like cures, he taught, that which carries light restores it where it has been lost. In his notes, he described patients who had forgotten how to feel joy. He gave them an extract of Hypericum and instructed them to spend their mornings facing the sunrise. After 40 days, he wrote, their eyes no longer feared the day. The church, of course, condemned this practice. To them, the sun was merely a star, not a healer. But Paracelsus believed light itself was medicine. He saw in each ray the same intelligence that formed the human body, and in each plant, a vessel of that intelligence. Every herb, he said, is a fragment of the original body of the world. Today, herbalists still use St. John's wort for depression, anxiety, and seasonal sadness. But behind every chemical explanation hides an ancient truth. The body heals when it remembers its light. Traditional use: infusion of dried flowers, 1 teaspoon per cup, twice a day. Or macerated oil applied to the skin to soothe burns, bruises, and scars. Precaution: avoid direct sunlight after using concentrated extracts. The plant amplifies the sun's power, as it does in the soul. In the Forbidden Herbal, St. John Sip's word is the first key, the key of illumination. Where the darkness within meets the light without, wrote Paracelsus, the body remembers its origin. Chapter 2, Valerian, the dream root. Valerian does not grow in places of noise. It prefers the damp soil by rivers, the shadows beneath trees, the silence where time itself seems to breathe slower. Its scent is strange, heavy, earthy, almost animal. Some call it unpleasant. Paracelsus called it the scent of the underworld, not the realm of the dead, but of dreams. Valerian, he wrote, is the bridge between wakefulness and the soul. While Hypericum awakens, Valerian descends. One brings the sun, the other the night. Together they form the pulse of nature itself. Expansion and rest, light and shadow, day and dream. For Paracelsus, sleep was not simply a function of the body, it was an act of alchemy. During sleep, he said, the physician within us begins his work. When the conscious mind finally withdraws, the deeper forces of the organism, the archeus as he called it, restore the balance that thought had disturbed. But in the modern world, he lamented, people fear the dark, and thus they cannot truly rest. That is where Valerian enters. Its roots contain compounds that soothe the nervous system, slowing the rhythm of the heart and quieting the racing mind. But for Paracelsus, its true virtue was symbolic. It teaches surrender. The will must learn to let go, he wrote, for even the stars sleep. He prescribed it to those who could not stop thinking, to warriors haunted by battles, to mothers who stayed awake through grief, to scholars whose dreams were full of arguments. He said Valerian reminded them that the soul does not vanish when the body sleeps. It travels. Modern science, centuries later, confirms what Paracelsus intuited. Valerian's valerianic acids interact with GABA receptors, the same neural pathways that regulate calm and relaxation. It does not force sleep. It invites it. That is why it works best when the person allows it, when control is surrendered. To rest, wrote Paracelsus, is to trust that life continues without you. In some parts of Europe, villagers would hang valerian above their doors to ward off nightmares and wandering spirits. Cats, drawn to its aroma, would roll ecstatically around the roots, as if recognizing in its scent a forgotten joy. Paracelsus saw in that behavior a clue. Even animals, he said, remember the medicine of peace. A patient once asked him, "Master, how can a root calm a soul tormented by guilt?" He answered simply, "Because the root has never known guilt. It only knows how to return to the earth." That for him was the essence of healing, to root oneself again in what does not fear the night. Traditional use: infusion of dried root, 1 teaspoon per cup, or tincture teen 20 drops before sleep. best taken in silence. Precaution. Avoid excess. Too much valerian dulls the flame of the morning, Paracelsus warned. He who sleeps too deeply forgets the path back. In the Forbidden Herbal, valerian is the second key, the key of restoration through surrender. Do not fight sleep, murmurs the root. It is not death. It is the door through which the soul returns to itself. Chapter 3. Sage. The memory of fire. Its leaves are soft, silvery, and full of scent. Sage does not whisper. It remembers. Wherever it grows, the air itself seems to clear, as if the plant were burning even before the flame touches it. Paracelsus called it the memory of fire. Sage, he wrote, does not burn to destroy. It burns to remind. For him, it was not merely an herb for the body, but a teacher of clarity. He believed that memory was not stored in the brain alone, but in the very fluids of the body, in the blood, the breath, even the marrow. When the inner fire weakens, memory fades, and the soul begins to drift. Forgetfulness, he said, is not a failure of the mind. It is the cooling of the spirit. That is why he used sage for both the old and the weary, for those who had lost not only their recollection, but their direction. The ancients already knew its virtues. The Latin name salvia comes from salvere, to heal. Romans carried it in pouches during long journeys, and monks in medieval Europe burned it to chase away demons. Paracelsus reinterpreted that legend. The demons, he said, are not outside us. They are the vapors of a mind that has forgotten its own light. Sage's fire is purifying, not violent, but precise. It dispels the mists that gather from excessive thought, worry, or fear. Its essential oils, thujone, camphor, cineole, stimulate the nervous system gently, awakening clarity without agitation. Modern research echoes this wisdom. A study published in Pharmacology, Biochemistry and Behavior, 2003, showed that even small doses of sage extract significantly improved memory and alertness. But what Paracelsus described centuries earlier was not just mental clarity, it was soul coherence. When the inner fire remembers itself, he wrote, the thoughts fall back into harmony. He compared the plant to a candle. If you light it in a dark room, you see more than objects. You see order. And that was the true medicine of sage, to bring light back to the structure of things, to make the invisible visible again. In some old rituals, people would burn sage and walk slowly through their homes, letting the smoke touch corners, windows, and mirrors, not to drive away spirits, but to invite back whatever had fled. Because, as Paracelsus said, purification is not exclusion, it is remembrance. A man once came to him, tormented by confusion and anger. He had lost his faith, his focus, his peace. Paracelsus gave him sage tea and told him to burn a leaf each night while breathing deeply. After 3 weeks, the man reported, the thoughts stopped screaming. They began to speak. That is the secret of sage. It does not silence. It translates. Traditional use. Infusion of dried leaves, 1 teaspoon per cup, 2 to 3 times a day, burned as incense for purification of space and thought. Precaution. Avoid excess during pregnancy or with strong stimulants. Its fire, though pure, can overheat the blood. In the Forbidden Herbal, sage is the third key, the key of remembrance through light. There is no darkness, it whispers, only what the fire has not yet remembered. Chapter 4. Nettle the Awakener. Everyone knows her sting. Before you even see her, you feel her. a spark, a burn, a warning. Nettle is the plant that demands attention. Paracelsus admired her for that very reason. He called her the plant of Mars, direct, fierce, impossible to ignore. Nettle, he wrote, is for those who sleep through their own lives. She stings the body to awaken the soul. Indeed, she does not heal softly. She stimulates, irritates, provokes movement. She forces blood to flow where stagnation has taken root. Nettle is not the herb of peace. It is the herb of awakening, paradoxical by nature. She is sharp on the outside and nourishing within. Once dried or cooked, her leaves are rich in iron, magnesium, silica, and vitamin K. They cleanse the blood and strengthen the bones. But in her raw state, she burns, and Paracelsus saw this as the perfect metaphor. Every true remedy carries within it a fragment of pain, he said, for the body must first feel before it can remember. Her sting is not poison, it is a message, a microinflammation that triggers circulation, wakes the nerves, and reactivates dormant vitality. The ancients used it to treat lethargy. Roman soldiers flogged their legs with fresh nettles before battle, to warm the muscles and prevent cramps. In Europe, peasants once used urtication therapy, lightly striking arthritic joints with nettles to draw heat and restore mobility. Today, science validates this. Nettle-est sting releases histamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine, chemical messengers that awaken immune and vascular response. In short, nettle forces the body to remember it is alive. But for Paracelsus, it was more than physiology. Each plant, he said, mirrors an inner archetype. Nettle represents sacred anger, the primal energy that, when understood, becomes transformation. He who represses his anger becomes cold, Paracelsus warned. The blood thickens, the heart closes. Nettle restores the fire. He gave it to patients who had given up fighting, who drifted through life in quiet resignation. Nettle didn't instead heal their sadness. It reignited their will. Modern psychology says the same. Repressed emotions stagnate within the body, creating tension and even autoimmune imbalance. Nettle burns through those blockages, purifying the blood both physically and symbolically. Research confirms that nettle supports liver detoxification, stimulates red blood cell production, and reduces inflammation. A 2016 phytotherapy research study showed that nettle extract significantly lowered systemic inflammation in patients with chronic arthritis. Paracelsus, of course, had already written, "Where there is stagnation, bring movement. Where there is cold, bring fire." Nettle carries both. He also noted its symbolism. Nettle grows in ruins, in wastelands, in places neglected by life. For him, that was no accident. Nettle rises where life was forgotten, he said. She is the first to return when all seems dead. That is her work within us too, to return vitality where energy has withdrawn. In the anemic, the exhausted, the spirit-weary, she acts as a cellular reminder. The fire is not gone, only asleep. A woman weakened by chronic fatigue drank nettle tea every morning for 3 weeks. Then she felt warmth return to her hands, a pulse of life through her limbs. "It was as if my blood began to move again," she said. That is Nettle Sip's teaching. Life moves even when you do not feel it. Traditional use: infusion of dried leaves, 2-4 g per cup, twice daily. Or root decoction, especially for men, Sip's prostate health, 20 g per liter, boiled 10 minutes. Precaution: avoid harvesting when flowering. The seeds can irritate, and always with respect. This is a plant of Mars. She answers the hand that touches her. Paracelsus wrote, "He who gathers nettle without awareness receives pain. He who greets her as an ally receives strength." In the Forbidden Herbal, nettle is the fourth key, the key of reconnection with inner fire. She does not heal through comfort, but through awakening. Where life has fallen asleep, she whispers, "Rise. The world still needs your fire." Chapter 5. Mandrake. The root of shadow. Few plants have inspired as much fear or fascination as mandrake. It appears in medieval grimoires, alchemical legends, and witch trials. They said it screamed when pulled from the earth, and that its cry could kill whoever heard it. Paracelsus did not believe in superstition, but he knew that behind myths often hides a deeper truth. "Mandrake is not evil," he wrote. "It is simply too close to the mystery man refuses to face within himself." The mandrake root resembles a human body, a distorted effigy, arms and legs spread, as if caught mid-transformation. Many saw in that form a sign of the devil. Paracelsus saw a mirror, the image of humankind still buried in matter waiting for light. He called it the root of shadow, because, he said, those who take it without preparation awaken their darkness before their healing. And he was right. Mandrake contains powerful tropane alkaloids, hyoscyamine, scopolamine, atropine. In small doses they ease pain, induce trance, and open the dream gates. In excess they cause delirium, madness, even death. Mandrake is the border between medicine and poison, between vision and abyss. Paracelsus used it rarely, and only as part of spiritual initiation. He said mandrake acts as a mirror of the subconscious, revealing not what one wishes to see, but what one hides to survive. "It does not heal," he wrote. "It teaches." Its energy is lunar and chthonic, descending deep into the hidden layers of the psyche, where the rational mind cannot follow. It numbs the body, but awakens a brutal clarity within the soul. Paracelsus noticed that those who took mandrake in minute doses reported symbolic dreams, encounters with forgotten memories, voices from childhood, faces from the depths of fear. He realized then that mandrake was not a sleep inducer, it was a door. "It does not put to sleep," he said. "It descends." Today, psychiatry might call it a loosening of the ego barrier, but Paracelsus called it facing oneself's own shadow. "The soul flees from what it cannot name," he wrote. Mandrake gives it the courage to look, yet mandrake offers no comfort. It strips away illusion, revealing raw desire, anger, and sorrow. And in that mirror, many lose themselves. That is why Paracelsus warned, mandrake is not a remedy, but a passage. Only the one who has already met his darkness may take it without losing his reason. Physically, its effects are well known. It blocks acetylcholine, inducing paralysis and hallucination, but its true power is symbolic. It breaks the wall between conscious and unconscious. Ancient initiates used it in rituals of symbolic death. They would drink a diluted infusion, fall into a deep death-like sleep, and awaken renewed, reborn after confronting their own darkness. Modern science confirms scopolamine's capacity to alter consciousness, but Paracelsus understood that mandrake was more than chemistry. It was the threshold itself. A healer from Tyrol in the 17th century once said, "Mandrake taught me that the shadow is not the enemy. It is the part of us that guards pain until we are ready to free it." Paracelsus would have agreed. For him, healing meant integration, not suppression. What we reject grows stronger. What we face becomes calm. What we embrace transforms. That is why he placed mandrake at the center of his circle of 12, the mirror of the soul. Not to comfort, but to reveal. Not to soothe, but to awaken truth. Traditional symbolic use, never taken raw. Modern herbalism forbids direct ingestion. Only energetic or homeopathic forms remain, as a symbol of descent and rebirth. Paracelsus closed his notes with these words: "He who seeks light without passing through night will find neither." Mandrake does not give clarity, it teaches how to deserve it. In the Forbidden Herbal, mandrake is the fifth key, the key of shadow integration, the plant that does not heal the wound, but forces you to stop lying about it. The fear you refuse to feel, whispers the root, is the one that rules you. Look at it, and it will serve you. And in that gaze, true freedom begins. Chapter 6, Rosemary, the guardian of clarity. Rosemary is the memory of the sun-made plant. When winter dulls every color, it stays green. When the cold winds strip the fields bare, its fragrance still burns quietly in the air. Paracelsus called it the plant of clear fire. Rosemary does not inflame, he wrote. It illuminates, and it does where other plants either stimulate or soothe. Rosemary manages to do both. It warms without burning, awakens without agitation, purifies without erasing. In the temples of ancient Greece, priests burned it before ceremonies, not for its scent, but to cleanse the mind. Students in Athens wore crowns of rosemary while studying. They said, "Where rosemary grows, memory lives." Paracelsus confirmed this ancient intuition. Rosemary, he wrote, awakens the clarity of the spirit, the ability to discern without judgment, to remember without attachment. He associated the plant with the sun and Mercury, symbols of light and intelligence. In his alchemical vision, rosemary represented purified fire, the light that no longer burns but reveals. And science once again has caught up. The active compounds of rosemary, rosmarinic acid, cineol, camphor, improve cerebral circulation and sharpen mental focus. A 2012 study published in Therapeutic Advances in Psychopharmacology showed that simply inhaling rosemary aroma increases working memory and cognitive speed. But Paracelsus saw beyond the brain. For him, rosemary clarified the soul, not just the intellect. He who has thought too much and felt too little, he wrote, let him drink rosemary and remember his center. Because confusion, he said, is not born from lack of knowledge, but from emotional overload. Too much information, too many fears, too many choices. Rosemary dissipates that fog. It does not provide answers. It restores silence between thoughts. That silence Paracelsus called the tranquil fire. Rosemary, he wrote, is the fire that no longer needs to burn to exist. It is consciousness resting in itself. In Mediterranean tradition, a sprig of rosemary was placed on the hearts of the dead to help them remember who they are beyond the body. It was the herb of lucid passage, keeping the soul awake even in death. That is why Paracelsus saw it as a medicine of coherence, a bridge between matter and spirit. Where rosemary enters, he said, discord leaves. It tunes the invisible strings of the human heart. A woman once came to him, exhausted by confusion and sadness. He gave her rosemary tea every morning. After a few days, she said, it feels like my mind can breathe again. That is rosemary sip's true gift. Not answers, but clarity. Traditional use. Infusion of dried leaves 2 g per cup, or inhalation of its essential oil in the morning. Never at night, It is a solar plant. Precaution: avoid in severe hypertension or pregnancy. Its fire is pure but potent. Paracelsus added, "He who stares too long at the sun loses sight. Even clarity must be tempered." In the Forbidden Herbal, rosemary is the sixth key, the key of awakened vision, the plant of discernment, focus, and inner light. When all seems confused, it whispers, "Breathe me in." The light you seek is not outside. It waits to pass through you. Chapter 7. Poppy. The sleep of the gods. The poppy sleeps standing in the fields. Its red petals open at dawn like fragile eyelids, then fall at dusk, leaving behind a capsule full of dreams. The ancients said that Morpheus, the god of sleep, was born from a poppy. In the temples of Asclepius, priests burned its seeds before tending to the sick, to invite dreams to descend. Paracelsus called it the flower of the threshold, the place where waking ends and oblivion begins. Poppy does not induce sleep, he wrote. It returns the body to the realm where pain becomes silent. Because sleep to him was not escape, it was restoration. In sleep, the body repairs and the soul reorganizes memory. When sleep is lost, the bond between them fractures. Paracelsus treated insomniacs and the fevered, those haunted by endless thoughts. He gave them gentle preparations of white or red poppy, never the raw opium. He said to take it pure was to steal the god's sleep. He knew that between remedy and poison, the only difference was measure. Too much sleep is forgetting. Too much wakefulness is madness. Balance is the gate. That was the poppy sip's lesson. It does instead just calm, it teaches surrender. The surrender of the warrior who stops fighting the night, of the mind that allows itself to rest. Science confirms what Paracelsus already knew. The alkaloids of the poppy, morphine, codeine, poppyarine, soothe pain by binding to the brain's opioid receptors, lowering the perception of suffering and allowing the nervous system to heal. But in its natural form, poppy acts more subtly. It soothes without erasing. It invites without forcing. In medieval villages, mothers placed poppy petals in warm milk to help their feverish children sleep. They knew, without naming it, that poppy doesn't just give sleep. It reminds it. Modern research confirms that the red poppy, Papaver rose, has mild sedative properties, inducing rest without dependence. An infusion of its petals quiets the heart and relaxes the body. But Paracelsus did not use poppy to make people forget. He used it to make them remember peace. True sleep, he wrote, is not the absence of the world. It is the return to its original harmony. He listened to the dreams of his patients, recording them as clues to invisible causes of illness. Dreams, he said, are the herbs of the soul. Each image carries a seed of healing. That is why poppy is not just a sedative. It is a messenger between worlds. It reconnects the conscious and the subconscious, the healer and the patient, the body and its forgotten wisdom. A woman, long tormented by chronic pain, drank a mild poppy infusion every night. After 2 weeks, she said, "The pain is still there, but I dream again." That was enough, because in dreams she was whole. Traditional use: infusion of red poppy petals, 1 teaspoon per cup, steep for 10 minutes, or syrup of white poppy, 1 spoon before bedtime. Precaution: never use raw resin or concentrated extract. The poppy holds one of the strongest powers known to humankind. And as Paracelsus wrote, the dose makes the poison, even for peace. In the Forbidden Herbal, poppy is the 7th key, the key of sacred rest. It doesn't offer escape, but the grace to lay down your weapons. You don't need to die to find silence, whispers the poppy. You only need to let yourself sleep. Chapter 8. Ginger, the inner fire. There is a root that burns without flame. When you bite it, the body remembers heat. Not the heat of fever, but the heat of life. Sailors once carried it on their voyages to keep away nausea, cold, and despair. The Chinese called it the hot root, for it rekindled the body's furnace when all other fires had gone out. Paracelsus revered it as the plant of Mars within, the inner warrior, the sacred fire that digests, transforms, and sustains. Ginger, he wrote, is not a stimulant, it is a resurrection. He treated what he called cold stomachs, people who ate but did not absorb, who lived but did not burn. To them he gave slices of ginger root steeped in wine or hot water. He said that when digestion awakens, so does the will to live. And he was right. Modern medicine knows ginger as zingiber officinol. Its compounds, gingerol and shogal, stimulate digestive enzymes, accelerate gastric emptying, and restore balance to the intestines. A 2008 study at Columbia University showed that ginger increased gastric motility by 25%. In simple words, it helps the body move again. But Paracelsus didn't only see digestion as a physical act. He saw it as a spiritual process of transformation. To digest, he wrote, is to turn matter into light. What the stomach does to food, the soul does to experience. That sips why when digestion fails, sadness often follows. The ancient healers knew. A cold stomach is a cold spirit. Ginger restores both. Its fire is intelligent. If the body burns too hot, it cools. If it freezes, it reignites. That's why he called it a living fire. A flame that knows when to rise and when to rest. A man came to him with fatigue, hands cold even in summer, a face pale as wax. Paracelsus told him, "You are not sick, you are unlit." After 3 weeks of ginger infusion, the man's color returned. He began to move, to breathe, to live again. The body that feels no heat, Paracelsus said, has forgotten that it is alive, and science once again caught up. In 2010, researchers confirmed that ginger increases thermogenesis, the body's natural production of heat. It enhances circulation, delivering oxygen to every cell. That's why after drinking it, you feel warmth spreading from your stomach to your fingertips. But Paracelsus warned, fire must be respected. He who feeds fire without purpose burns instead of shines. Used with awareness, ginger strengthens vitality, ignites digestion, relieves inflammation, and rekindles enthusiasm for life itself. In ancient Ayurvedic texts, it was said that ginger burns the dampness of the soul. In alchemy, it corresponds to the red phase, the stage of transmutation, where chaos turns into clarity. Traditional use, fresh root grated 2 to 4 grams daily, steeped in hot water, or dried powder, 1 to 3 grams. Fresh is gentle, dried is potent. Precaution, avoid inactive ulcers or bleeding disorders. Its warmth can awaken too much fire in fragile systems. In the Forbidden Herbal, ginger is the 8th key, the key of inner fire, not the fire that destroys, but the fire that remembers. When your body grows cold, whispers the root, do not beg for light, become it. Chapter 9. Chamomile, the mother of softness. Some plants heal through strength. Chamomile heals through tenderness. It grows close to the ground, Its white petals small, its scent gentle but persistent. You can trample it, and it will rise again. Calmer than before, softer yet undefeated. Paracelsus called it the mother of softness. Chamomile, he wrote, is the smile of the earth when it forgives. He gave it to those who had lost not their health, but their peace. To the irritable, the anxious, the restless, to those whose pain came not from injury, but from resistance. The body, he said, contracts when it fears. Chamomile teaches it to trust again. Indeed, chamomile says strength is subtle. It does not fight pain. It dissolves it. It does not stop movement. It soothes it. Modern science has identified more than 100 compounds in it. Apigenin, bisabolol, chamazoline, molecules that calm the nerves, relax the muscles, and ease inflammation. Clinical studies show that chamomile tea reduces cortisol, lowers anxiety, and improves sleep quality. But Paracelsus did not speak in molecules. He spoke in signatures. The flower sits yellow center, like a tiny sun, and its white petals spreading outward, symbolized for him the harmony between light and gentleness. Chamomile, he wrote, is the sun that does not burn. It was in his view the plant of Venus, of love, beauty, and balance. While Mars plants fight and Mercury plants stimulate, Venus plants reconcile. That's why chamomile works on both the stomach and the heart. It calms digestion because it calms emotion. It restores appetite not by force, but by making peace with life. A mother once brought her child to Paracelsus, crying from endless colic. He touched the boy Sip's belly gently, smiled, and whispered, "He is not in pain, he is afraid." He prescribed warm chamomile water. Then a few nights later, the child slept through till dawn. The body of a child, Paracelsus said, is like a harp. It vibrates to the mother Set's song. That is why chamomile is sacred to mothers, because it holds the same vibration of comfort. Modern research confirms that its aroma acts directly on the limbic system, the brain's emotional core. It slows the pulse, deepens breathing, and signals safety to the body. Safety that sets the true medicine for what is healing, if not the return of trust. Chamomile, wrote Paracelsus, does not impose silence. It teaches the noise to rest. Traditional use: infusion of dried flowers, 1 tablespoon per cup, the taken before sleep or after meals, can be applied as a compress for inflammation. Precaution: none for most people, except those allergic to daisies. It is the gentlest of healers, but even love, Paracelsus said, must be measured to be understood. In the Forbidden Herbal, chamomile is the 9th key, the key of reconciliation, the plant that restores the dialogue between body and tenderness. Do not fight the pain, murmurs the flower. Hold it, and it will change its name. Chapter 10. Lavender, the violet breath. If rosemary is the clear fire of morning, then lavender is the quiet light of dusk. It doesn't stimulate, it soothes. But not like an anesthetic. It soothes like a hand placed gently on the forehead. After a long and heavy day, Paracelsus called it the violet breath. Lavender, he wrote, does not chase away tension. It teaches the body how to breathe again. And that is exactly what it does. It restores rhythm to the breath, slowness to the heart, and space to the mind. In the monasteries of Europe, monks cultivated lavender around their cells. They knew that its scent calmed restless spirits, and that a sachet of dried flowers under the pillow could ease sleepless nights. But Paracelsus went further. To him, lavender was not just a sedative, it was an harmonizer. Where lavender acts, he said, the extremes reconcile. Heat softens, cold warms. Turmoil remembers silence. He saw it as a plant of Mercury and the moon. Movement and softness, reason and intuition, air and water, the meeting of opposites. That is why lavender heals both body and mind. Modern research confirms what he sensed centuries ago. Lavender essential oil, rich in linalool and linyl acetate, reduces adrenaline and cortisol. A 2013 study from Kagoshima University in Japan showed that inhaling lavender for 15 minutes lowers blood pressure and heart rate, while increasing alpha brain waves, the rhythm of relaxed awareness. But Paracelsus observed something deeper. He noticed that anxious people often held their breath. The body, he said, forgets to breathe when the soul no longer trusts the world. And lavender, he believed, gives back the right to breathe. That is its true medicine. It works through the air, through scent, through presence itself. Its perfume becomes a signal of safety to the nervous system. The brain recognizes peace before the mind can understand it. A woman suffering from panic attacks began carrying a small bottle of lavender oil. At the first wave of fear, she inhaled deeply 3 times. Within a month, her crises faded. The fear didn't disappear, she said. It just lost its power over my breath. That is lavender sit's invisible gift. It restores the breathing of the soul. Traditional use: a few drops of true lavender essential oil, Lavandula angustifolia, in hot water or on the pillow before sleep. As an infusion, 1 to 2 grams of dried flowers per cup, twice daily. Precaution: do not confuse with spike lavender, Lavandula latifolia, which is harsher and stimulating. True lavender heals through gentleness, and it is that gentleness that makes it strong. Paracelsus warned, "He who mistakes peace for weakness has never met true strength." For lavender says softness tames invisible storms. In the Forbidden Herbal, lavender is the 10th key, the key of conscious rest, the plant of return, of lucid calm, but of breathed silence. "Breathe," murmurs lavender. "You have nothing to control. Life already breathes within you." And in that rediscovered breath, peace ceases to be an effort. It becomes natural, like an evening in summer, when everything is still and even the air seems to pray. Chapter 11. Aconite, the sacred poison. Aconite grows where few plants dare to live, on cold mountain slopes, in places where the soil is thin and the wind sharp, where even the light seems to hesitate. Its flower is violet, shaped like a hooded flame, beautiful, deadly. A few grams of its root can stop a heart. That is why people called it monkshood or wolfsbane. To most, it was the flower of death. But to Paracelsus, it was a teacher. "Nothing is poison, and nothing is remedy," he wrote. "It is only the dose and the consciousness of the one who uses it." He saw in aconite not evil, but the test that all healers must face. It reveals, he said, the border between the fear of dying and the courage to live. To touch aconite is to touch death itself, not just physical death, but every ending the soul resists: loss, transformation, surrender. And that is why he called it the sacred poison. For Paracelsus, illness was never an accident. It was a message, a rupture between human awareness and nature. Aconite, in its deadly perfection, brought the patient back to humility, to the realization that life is not owned, only borrowed. He who drinks aconite without reverence, he warned, calls his own end. But he who contemplates it with wisdom learns to live without illusion. He rarely prescribed it. To him it was less a medicine than initiation, a symbol, not a substance. Modern science recognizes its danger. Its alkaloid, aconitine, blocks sodium channels in the heart, causing numbness, paralysis, and eventually cardiac arrest. It is one of the purest poisons known, but that purity fascinated Paracelsus. Death, he said, is the most exact of all alchemies. It dissolves without judgment, transforms without hesitation. Aconite bears its signature. In secret alchemical circles, a diluted tincture of aconite was once used in symbolic rites. A drop, no more, mixed with holy water, not to heal the body, but to prepare the soul. The initiate would sit in darkness, breathing slowly, facing the presence of fear itself. "Look upon death," said the master, "and it will cease to frighten you." That is the paradox. The most lethal plant teaches the peace beyond fear. A legend tells of a monk, accused of heresy, who drank a fatal draught of aconite before his arrest. When they found him hours later, he was sitting upright, calm, eyes open to the sky. On his lips was a single word, luminous. Paracelsus would have said, "He did not die from poison. He died from truth." Aconite is the plant of passage, the reminder that all medicine carries risk and that all light must pass through shadow. Traditional symbolic use, never taken internally. Modern herbalism forbids ingestion. Only homeopathic or energetic forms remain, used to calm shock, trauma, or the fear of death itself. "He who looks upon death without turning away," wrote Paracelsus, "learns that life never needed to be protected." In the Forbidden Herbal, aconite is the 11th key, the key of spiritual courage, the plant that does not heal, but reveals the essence of life, fragile, yet infinite. "What you call an ending," whispers the flower, "is only a change of form. Nothing dies. Everything transforms, and in that transformation, peace is born." Chapter 12, Myrrh, the Seal of Light. There are fragrances that do not fade. They linger in the air like memories that belong to the soul itself. Myrrh is one of them, dense, amber, almost earthy. It doesn't seduce. It consecrates. In ancient temples, it was burned to honor the gods. The Egyptians used it to embalm the dead, the Hebrews to anoint prophets, and the early Christians to prepare bodies for burial. But Paracelsus said that myrrh did not belong to the dead. It belonged to the reborn. "Myrrh," he wrote, "is not the end, but the seal of transmutation fulfilled, for it acts where fire and flesh meet, in the wound. And that is precisely where light wishes to enter. Myrrh does not heal by softness. It heals by density, by sealing what has been open too long, by purifying what has been defiled, by sanctifying what has endured pain. It does not make new," said Paracelsus. "It makes sacred. A resin that bleeds from a wounded tree. It flows like blood, then hardens into amber pearls, a scar turned into an offering. That is its secret. It teaches the body and the soul that the wound is not the end. It is the door." In alchemy, myrrh marked the completion of the great work, the matter turned into spirit, the body transfigured into light. Paracelsus called it the signature of incarnated radiance. Modern science confirms its earthly powers. Studies show that myrrh has antimicrobial and regenerative properties. A 2013 article in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology revealed that myrrh extracts accelerate tissue repair, and stimulate cellular renewal. But beyond the physical, myrrh works as a fragrance of union, a bridge between visible and invisible worlds. He who burns myrrh, wrote Paracelsus, invites light to dwell within matter. That is why it was placed beside the dead, not to mourn them, but to guide them toward clarity. And yet its scent does not belong to mourning. It belongs to resurrection, to that quiet, radiant strength that appears when a being has survived the fire and no longer needs to prove anything. A woman once healed from a long illness kept a small piece of myrrh with her always. She said, "It sets not a charm. It sets a reminder that I passed through the flames, and I am still here." That is the essence of myrrh, the fragrance of those who have returned. Traditional use, burned as incense to purify a space or a spirit, infused in oil to anoint wounds, skin, or sacred objects. Only a few drops are needed. Myrrh never shouts, it seals. Precaution, use with clear intention. Its power is not in its strength, but in its presence. Paracelsus warned, myrrh does not heal those who refuse to change. It comes to seal what is ready to be reborn. In the Forbidden Herbal, myrrh is the 12th and final key, the seal of light. It closes the circle opened by Hypericum, transforming the solar fire of the beginning into a calm, eternal flame. Nothing is lost, whispers Mars. Everything that burns becomes light, and everything wounded becomes passage. Thus ends the Forbidden Herbal of Paracelsus, not as a book of cures, but as a map of return. For true alchemy is not in the plants, but in the one who learns to listen to them